Opponents of the Internal Revenue Service celebrated this week after Elon Musk disguised IRS headquarters to look like a Tesla car dealership so that Democrats would burn it to the ground. The billionaire inventor covered the main IRS building with Tesla emblems and signage. He also parked a few electric cars out front as part of his plan to lure Democrats to the location so they'd light it on fire. Within a few hours, leftists flocked to the building with Molotov cocktails, blowtorches, Samsung Galaxy Note 7s, and other incendiary devices. IRS headquarters was reduced to rubble by the end of the day. One enraged protester could be seen throwing a Molotov cocktail through a window of the IRS building and shouting, "Fascists are violent, kill them all." Elon Musk released a statement saying, "For the cost of a few Tesla signs, we've now freed the American people from the terrible burden of excessive taxation. Ironically, once the rubble of the IRS building is cleared, we will in fact build an enormous new Tesla dealership in its place. But now I have to go. I'm playing Diablo 4. Americans rejoiced over the news of the torched building. Many say they hope Musk disguises the Department of Education building as a Tesla dealership next, so Democrats will light that one up as well. The roving herd of firebombing Democrats quickly turned their anger toward a nearby Waffle House where a waitress reportedly referred to a man in a dress as Sir. The restaurant was torched in minutes in what participants called a stunning display of bravery and tolerance. Coming up next, is your toddler secretly mining Bitcoin in your basement? We give you the warning signs.
Dagnabbit, I got here just a second too late. I'm out for a evening night hike, which I haven't done in a long time. Just get a little bit of the nature on the video, but it's amazing how rapidly that sun goes down, about this time of night. Watching the world burn, watching the world burn. April 29th. 2025. Let's get into it. All right, I'm going to move this clip to the front of the video, so if you're seeing it going, man, this video is going to be dark. No, I meant to, I forgot to talk about this. The song that I did, got a lot of feedback. Terribly wonderful was the best comment that I got. Han was my favorite comment. Okay, it was terrible. It was a song, but it was all about the lyrics, and I'm hoping that somebody would pick up on the lyrics and redo that song with that is musically inclined. Obviously, I'm not, and that's why I did the song. Okay, so understand that it wasn't about me singing it or anything like that. I was just trying to give the next person an idea on what to do. But I'm sorry if I tortured your ears. Somebody said my ears hurt. That was another comment that I got. Sorry, your ears are hurting, man. But anyway, if you want to try it and put that song to music and redo it, I give you permission. And plus, that music's copyrighted anyway, so you're gonna have to be careful. You're not gonna make money. Let's put it that way. Wasn't that a great clip from the Babylon Bee? By the way, it can't steal too much of the material. I do give them proper attribution, so I think they're okay with it. They got a 6-minute video that you got to check out about kids going to college and getting brainwashed into believing all the liberal Democrat stuff. And it was hilarious. They had to do a forced intervention to get the kid out of the liberal college and put him into a master's university Christian college. And I don't know, you have to watch it. It's 6 minutes long. Well, actually it's only really about 5. Anyway, I wanted to get into illegal immigration for just a minute because, I had a different slant on it. When you've got that Democrat neighbor that wants to burn your house down, and believe me, they do, you can also make the argument, when they're saying, I can't believe we're deporting all of these illegal immigrants. By the way, we just did Operation Tidal Wave here in Florida. I think they gobbled up about 800 criminal illegal immigrants. But I wanted you to look at it a little different way. So imagine, okay, let's say you're a young man, or like I was, and I just gotten out of college or whatever, and I don't have a job, and the United States puts out a flyer, and I'm living in a crappy house with maybe my parents or something, might have committed a crime or two in Africa or wherever in the world. We brought them in from everywhere. And somebody, is offering a paid vacation. And in my case, I would like to visit Australia and New Zealand. I never really got to go to either of those countries, but I thought those would be fun to visit. Anyway, so they're saying, we'll fly you into the United States, and then we'll pay you $3,000 a month out of Social Security to stay in the United States. And we'll also put you up in a 5-star hotel and give you a credit card for food. But all you have to do is vote Democrat. And I'd say, well, okay, that sounds good to me. Hell, so now I get to fly to Australia. And boy, I tell you, the Australian women, from what I've seen back in the day, they're good looking. And with $3,000 a month, hopefully you're smart enough to sack some of that money away. Because that gravy train ain't going to last forever. Because it eventually, even if the Democrat Kamala Harris had won, that's going to bankrupt the country. And when seniors realize what the Democrats did to them and they're no longer getting their Social Security, the pitchforks and knives would come out and we would have had chaos, which is what the Democrats wanted. They wanted a Marxist revolution in the United States. But anyway, so now, Trump comes in and I realize, well, dagnabbit, the gravy train's kind of coming to an end, but at least I got a year or two, or some even 3, in the United States where I didn't have to work. I didn't have to do anything. In fact, I could walk into a store in a Democrat city and just steal whatever I want off the shelf if I didn't want to pay for it, So I've been living high on the hog for, a paid vacation for almost 2 or 3 years. So now Trump says, well, I'm just going to send you back home. I'd be like, well, okay, I guess when I get back home, I got all this money saved up that the Democrats gave me. And I guess I'll just have to look for, a job or develop my own business. Maybe by this time, after 3 years of being paid on a paid vacation by the Democrats, I've got some ideas for a business when I get back home. You see what I'm saying? Are you feeling sorry for these illegal immigrants that we're deporting? Now, your Democrat neighbor is, I'm sure. And I got a video from Stephen Miller on illegal immigration and what it was doing to the country. Let's watch that now.
So, look, you've cataloged the horrors that have been inflicted. The rapes, the beatings, the murders, the fentanyl deaths by the hundreds of thousands, the destruction of entire neighborhoods in this country because of the Democrat Party's policy of open borders these last 4 years. You mentioned the threat of international terrorism that is on our shores, the millions of gotaways you entered under the previous administration, on top of the millions more unvetted that were caught and released into the country, and the millions more that were allowed to either fly into the country or overstay their visas. It is a clear and present danger to the national security of this country, and we have federal judges telling President Trump that he can't deport these threats from our communities. This is the choice facing every American. Either we all side and get behind President Trump to remove these terrorists from our communities, or we let a rogue radical left judiciary shut down the machinery of our national security apparatus. President Trump is going to see this through to his conclusion, and we will find and remove every terrorist from this country, and President Trump will make this nation safer than ever before, and he'll do it over the fighting and opposition of the Democrat Party, over the fighting and opposition of the communist left-wing judges, over the fighting and opposition of the far-left federal bureaucracy. He will not be deterred, Sean. He will see this through, I promise you.
All right. So that was kind of the first topic, because I don't think anybody has ever looked at it as the illegal immigrants getting a paid vacation. There's other sides to the illegal immigrant equation, in the fact that, Venezuela was working with the Democrats with Tren de Agua, and we brought them in as a terrorist force to terrorize the United States. They were a paid army you could really look at. Hell, a lot of the illegal immigrants were paid army. The Democrats were trying to destroy the United States. You got a Democrat neighbor? They hate you, man. They hate you. Okay, so, and anyway, so they during that raid, they've in Colorado, I think it was Colorado Springs, they picked up a bunch of Tren de Agua. And they, and think about it. They've been here on a paid vacation, actually paid to destroy the United States. Now, many people are speculating that those fires in California and a lot of the disasters that have taken place were done by Tren de Agua. I have no proof of that whatsoever, but it would make sense if you're over here to destabilize and destroy the United States, which is what the Democrats want. They hate you, man. They hate humanity. And anyway, that would make sense that they were involved in that. And we'll see. I guess hopefully the new FBI or the new Justice Department. By the way, what'd you think of that story of Kristi Noem having her pocketbook stolen? There was a guy pointing out, when you think about it, she's got all of the Secret Service detail all around her. And you think, oh man, there's no way that, and supposedly it was an illegal immigrant that did it. but you'd think there's no way that the Homeland Security, who's got her own security, that her pocketbook could get stolen. Of course, she said it was a professional operation. There's no proof of that I know of yet. But anyway, but the guy was pointing out, all right, suppose you're on a security detail, all right, and you've got to, you're securing this person. Well, you're looking around. Does anybody have a gun? Anybody got a knife? Is there an object? Is there an IED? Is there a bomb? Are you really thinking about where the pocketbook is? No. So yeah, it's a plausible story. I mean, I'm sure that anybody might get that pocketbook, because I wouldn't be thinking about somebody stealing the pocketbook if I'm providing security for somebody. I just wanted to get off on a tangent. By the way, I got another video. Sorry about the siren in the background there. Got another video, which it is now confirmed that yes, there were North Koreans in Ukraine. And I think it was in the Kursk region. But anyway, it was at the request of Kim Jong-un. And you say, well, if the Russians don't need help, why did they enlist the North Koreans? Well, there's no better soldier than a bloodied soldier, okay? If you haven't seen combat, as I have, anybody can tell you that a soldier new to combat reacts a lot differently than a soldier that's been in combat. So let me give you an example. Okay, here I am at Jabber, Kuwait, and the war had just started, and the sirens. Well, I was in the chow hall, and the sirens went off, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And I mean, food was flying everywhere. People were overturning tables. It was mass bedlam, chaos. Everybody was, because you're hearing that sound. When you hear that for the first time, knowing it's real, it scares the living bejeebies out of you. We reacted to that. My God. Of course, what were we going to do? If a Scud missile hit the chow hall, getting under a table ain't going to do no damn good, but that's how we reacted. I hate to say it. Almost like a coward in a certain kind of way. Well, later on in the war, after about 2 weeks of the sirens going off, the next time the siren went off, okay, how did we react? Oh boy, well, whatever. I guess it might be coming in somewhere. I wonder if there's a, boy, I tell you, I'm getting a lot of noise for being out in the woods. There's a helicopter now. I tell you, we'll have to cut off. This is gonna get too loud. Hold on. Sorry about that. Now there's a plane in the background. I'm gonna tell you, there wasn't much traffic on the way here. Anyway, that's it for the story. So what Kim Jong-un wanted was just to get his soldiers bloodied. And I got a video on that. Let's watch that video from RT right now.
We are now approaching the victory day over the German fascist invaders. The Soviet Union waged a fierce struggle against fascism and was able to defeat it on its own soil. Now Russia is also waging this struggle, but this time against Ukrainian neo-Nazis. And the DPRK, by providing assistance to Russia in this holy war, was also able to take part in the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. We can say now that Russian and Korean soldiers are once again shoulder to shoulder, repeating the feat that our ancestors did in the past.
President Vladimir Putin announcing a ceasefire for the about 72 hours to mark the May 9th Victory Day holidays, of course, marking 80 years since the defeat of Nazism and fascism. Meantime, the US is saying next week is very important when it comes to trying to bring Zelensky and Putin together, with Trump, of course, there, not on the sidelines, but in the middle as a mediator, so to speak. Next week, what are your expectations between Moscow and Kiev? Are you optimistic?
Kiev has always violated its agreements. No matter how many goodwill gestures Russia makes, the Kiev regime always throws it back in the face. Even recently, during the Easter truce, Ukraine conducted strikes on Russian territory. This is an absolutely inhuman Nazi regime, which unfortunately only understands the language of force. I sincerely hope that Donald Trump can really bring Kiev to the negotiating table. For Zelensky, it's not beneficial to sign any agreements. He only needs the war to go. In fact, the life of the Ukrainian dictator now depends on how long this war will last. He will do everything possible to maintain his power. And if the war ends, he will be thrown off by his own citizens, who sincerely hate him. He drove the Ukrainian nation almost underground. Now Ukrainian men are forced to run away from mobilization officers in order to not end up at the front. How many people died? How many people are still dying? And all, in fact, because of Zelensky. I don't think it's worth relying on such a person to sign any agreements on territorial concessions, at least because he already refuses to recognize even the loss of Crimea. Crimea is a region that has been part of Russia for a very, very long time, and Zelensky continues to deny it. The Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics, the Zaporozhye and Kherson regions, the same thing. It would be political suicide for Zelensky.
All right, so that was, that just showed you, and basically they were just there to get experience. By the way, Colonel McGregor said the number was about 800 Koreans, and that they were using the old military tactics that we use in the United States. So they didn't actually perform very well, so they didn't help the Russians out, from what I understand, very much. But, you know, now they got some experience, and I imagine they will improve just like I did during the war. Getting back to illegal immigration, I got a good post here. I'm going to try to read this to you. This is Data Republican. Boy, I tell you, she's doing a lot. Boy, I could never do this one-handed. There we go. Of course, illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. Ask my followers who are denied SSDI. So imagine all these old people that are going to get denied Social Security because they didn't pay attention. They didn't care because it's political. It's political. I can't talk about that. Oh, no. I'm not at church. Can't talk about politics at church. Can't talk about politics at the VFW. Can't talk about politics in the Veterans Organization. Oh, but when they lose that gravy train, I bet they wish they had talked about it, huh? So let's read this now. Ask my followers who are denied SSDI because someone stole their identity to work illegally, and the courts refused to fix it. The government simply turned its back on them. Identity theft via illegal immigration is built into the DNA of Washington, D.C., and I'm going to add Democrats, but it's okay because it enriches the right people. It enriches the Democrats. And then she's got two tags here. You can see it in the post. Covered how it all happens below. And then this is Tom Homan. Boy, I tell you, isn't Tom Homan doing a great job? I love this guy, man. And it's new. Tom Homan reminds the press that illegal immigration is not a victimless crime and drops brutal first-hand examples that the left the room stunned And let's watch that video.
I hear it all the time. There's a lot of people in this country don't like me. I don't care. But when I walk through an airport, I have many people walking up to me and thank me for what I'm doing, and I'm not taking credit for anything. The success of the border and immigration enforcement is President Trump and the men and women wearing that uniform. God bless each and every one of them. But I take a pleasure in seeing it because in 40 years of doing this job, people always want to say, why are you so emotional when you testify? Why are you so emotional on network? Because if they wore my shoes for 40 years, they'd understand why I'm emotional. I've talked to little girls as young as 9 years old that were raped multiple times by the cartel members. And then when you get to your knees and you talk to that little girl and everything innocent and pure has been ripped from her, when you listen to the Laken Riley, 17 minutes, that young lady fighting for her life, don't just think, okay, a young woman died. Think of how she died, the terror that she went through, and these children that are sexually assaulted. I stood in the back of a tractor trailer and 19 dead people at my feet that baked to death. Illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. And so every sick person we take off the streets, especially child rapists, it makes this country much safer. Every illegal alien we arrest, public safety threat, one at a time makes this country safer.
All right, so that was Tom Home. The other story I'm going to touch on briefly before it's going to get dark on me. That's why I got the headlamp on my head, if you can see it in the video, because I wanted to get out for a night hike. I haven't done this in a long time. Sometimes being out at night is really, really cool. Although it's kind of scary because you see all the spider eyes looking up at you, and you say, man, I didn't know that there was that many spiders around. Oh my God, because I hate spiders. Snakes don't bother me, spiders do. Anyway, let's talk about Ukraine just a minute. Now, if you didn't know, there's going to be a ceasefire over the holiday. I think I got a video on the Great Patriotic War, as the Russians call it. But if I don't, realize that 25 million Russians died defeating the Nazis in Germany, and now they feel they're fighting Nazis in Ukraine, and I feel so too. So it's, it's a repeat for them, and they're actually fighting NATO. But I've said in recent posts that I've put up that there can be no peace. Understand, Russia's winning the war. Why in the world would they go to a ceasefire and let the West or the United States rearm Ukraine so that Ukraine can fight and bomb them again? Imagine if Russia armed Mexico. Or now, of course, now that the liberals are in charge of Canada, Canada's a lost cause, isn't it? Oh my God, I can't believe after Trudeau wrecked the country, they put another liberal in charge of the country. And for what I understand, he's not even really hardly a resident of Canada. The globalists brought him in to run Canada, and yet they elected him. Now, in the Canadians' defense, I don't think those are free and fair elections. So it could be they cheated their way to getting this guy in, but the people of Canada have got to do what we did here in the United States. The Democrats were cheating in our elections, and yet a lot of conservatives, a lot of people, fought against that. And we made our elections good enough to get Trump elected. Now, there was still a lot of cheating that took place in 2024, but we had eliminated enough of the cheating, and like Elon Musk said, too big to rig, and that's how we got Trump elected. So the Canadians have to take a more active role in solidifying their elections, because that was probably stolen. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. I was talking about Ukraine. Anyway, the Russians are taking town after town, city after city. You know, they completely pushed. Well, they killed, the numbers I keep hearing vary from about 74,000 to 77,000 Ukrainians died in the Battle of Kerch. And so right now, there's not a lot between Russia and Sumy. Sumy is a big city. So they're going to be coming down. They've got two huge armies that are ready to roll into Ukraine that they're holding in reserve temporarily, I guess waiting on the weather. And but even though they're waiting, they're still advancing. So why in the world would Russia want a ceasefire? You understand? They're going to get what they want on the battlefield. And you know, I hope you're watching some other channels like Daniel Davis Deep Dive, who goes into, you know, how this war started. Actually on Larry Johnson, I think it's, God dang it, Sonar, God dang, I think it's sonar21.com. I don't know, I'll get the link in the video. Anyway, he wrote a huge article talking about the origins of the war, which dates all the way back to the 1990s. And he was pointing out, because, you know, everybody says, oh, Trump can commit no evil. He was pointing out that Trump actually was right there with Obama and Biden and every other president arming Ukraine. In fact, Trump, if you remember, he bragged about the fact that he sent javelins to Ukraine to fight the Russians. But he didn't just send javelins. There was a lot of other military hardware that happened during the first Trump administration, arming the Ukrainians up to the teeth. And the numbers I've heard was huge. They had 900,000 on men, which is more than we have in the United States on active duty. And then they had another 1 million in reserve. So when Russia came across in February of 2022, they had no idea they were facing a 2 million man army armed to the teeth by the West or NATO. And so, you know, that's why this war has taken 3 years for the Russians to get the upper hand. And you know, having air supremacy obviously has helped the Russians out. And so they've just been taking their time killing Ukrainians. I'd say we're up to at least 1.5 million dead Ukrainians. So people have pointed out that the Russians have already defeated 4 Ukrainian armies. So right now, the Ukrainians are on the defense. All right, I think it's going to get dark on me. So that'll be it for today's video. I'm sorry it was kind of short. If I see another clip, I'll put it in. So let's, I'll keep looking at my, my bookmarks, and we'll try to get some other news on this video. All right, if not, peace out. Stay free. All right, I do have another post. This was a really good one, just put up today. Anyway, this is Marco Rubio. Now, you know that Democrats hate free speech. If they could shut you up and throw you in a concentration camp, they would. And anyway, turns out there was a shadow organization that existed in the State Department that was suppressing, or its sole mission was to suppress free speech. And this is a long thread, but it's got some good videos in it. But I'll just read you to the first one. It all started innocently enough 10 to 15 years ago. I want to say under Obama, Democrat. The State Department created a program to counter terrorist messaging from Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Who could argue with that? But here's where it gets disturbing. And we have a video. Let's watch that now.
Sharing for the American people a very momentous day in the history of the State Department and the U.S. government in restoring free speech and America's role as the beacon of free speech. Something very historic transpired today. Could you tell the American people what that was?
Well, we ended government-sponsored censorship in the United States through the State Department, and let me explain how we get there. This started out, 10 years ago with this effort of let's go after the messaging that Al-Qaeda and ISIS and others are putting to radicalize people. Oh, no, who's going to be against that? That sounds normal. And then it was like in 2016, we had this foreign interference in our election. We need to start targeting some of that stuff.
Okay, let's continue the thread. After the 2016 election, the program's focus shifted to targeting foreign interference in elections. Remember the Russia hoax? Democrats still believe that shit, man. Oh, man. By 2020, it had morphed into something far more sinister, a government-funded operation targeting individual American voices. And we got another video from Marco Rubio on that. Let's watch that video.
By 2020, it had grown into this movement of like actually going after individual American voices. And one of the ways that was being done wasn't just directly, because the guy that was running this thing, Stengel, was actually a guy that was out there saying, you know, Donald Trump talks just like a Russian spy. He talks just like a terrorist. And so do the people around him. But they were also taking money from this program and using it to fund these NGOs, these third-party groups who were supposed to be like impartial.
Daggone it. Sorry, I have a hard time working my notes here. All right, hold on. Well, that's going to require some editing. The man running this operation, Richard Stengel, who publicly claimed Donald Trump talks just like a Russian spy. He talks just like a terrorist, and so do the people around him. This wasn't just talk. They had a sophisticated system to silence opposition. Got a picture of him in the video right here. Good, I made it. Here's how the censorship machine worked. The State Department funded supposedly impartial NGOs with taxpayer money. These third-party groups then tagged American commentators and media outlets as foreign agents. But that was just the beginning. The consequences were real and devastating. There weren't just labels. They led Americans to getting deplatformed and silenced online. High-profile targets included Ben Shapiro and the Federalist, but countless everyday citizens were also caught in the dragnet. And another video from Marco Rubio. Let's watch that now.
Those groups were then tagging. They were literally tagging and labeling voices in American politics, Ben Shapiro, the Federalist, others, tagging them as foreign agents. So you look at it and say, American taxpayers, through the State Department, were paying groups to attack Americans and to try to silence the voice of Americans. And there were consequences. These weren't just a label they put on people. Some of these people got deplatformed, they got taken down, they couldn't communicate. So it was outrageous. So before President Trump took over, they disbanded this unit. They just renamed it and moved it somewhere else. But now, over the last few months, we've worked on it and just taken it down. And to the extent we're spending money now, we are going to spend money on messaging. It's going to be pro-American messaging. And it's going to be incentivizing and protecting free speech, which is threatened in all over the world, including countries that are allies of ours. The best way to counter disinformation, if that's what people are thinking is out there, the best way to counter disinformation is free speech.
Okay, let's keep going. Just when you think it couldn't get more shocking, before Trump took office, they didn't shut down the unit. They simply renamed it and moved it elsewhere in the bureaucracy. As I walk into the woods, I'm like, wait a minute, where'd the trail go? Oh man, all right. So they simply renamed it and moved it elsewhere in the bureaucracy, a classic government shell game to avoid accountability. Got a picture of Trump right there. The most disturbing part, American taxpayers were unknowingly funding this censorship apparatus. Your tax dollars were being used to silence fellow Americans for exercising their First Amendment rights. Senator Rubio's team had been quietly dismantling this system over recent months. They're documenting what happened for two critical reasons. So those harmed can prove that they were targeted to ensure it never happens again. And we got another video here.
Yeah, so I think what we have to do now, and Darren will be big involved in that as well, is sort of document what happened. Because one thing is to say it in a broadcast like this, another thing is to actually put it on paper. And there's two reasons to do it. The first is because I think people who were harmed deserve to know that and be able to prove that they were harmed. And then the other is to make sure it never happens again, right? So that 10 years from now, when someone has a brilliant idea like this again, not brilliant idea like this again, you can point to that and say, oh, this was done once before, and here's a reason why we don't. That's why accountability is important in these things, because it doesn't just provide justice, but it also prevents it from happening in the future. You have something you can point to at the same time and say, these are the kinds of things we want to stay away from.
I'm getting this scrolling thing down. But that's not the end of the story. We're now facing an even bigger threat from abroad. The European Union has become increasingly aggressive in censoring speech, including targeting Americans speaking about American issues. Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, the censorship that's taking place in Europe is unbelievable. Oh my God, Great Britain, they're throwing people in jail for just posting something that they could deem hate speech on X. And speaking of X, from what I understand, they were suing Elon Musk for, I want to say, billions of dollars for, I don't know, I guess, if you're not on a VPN, in Europe, how can you even watch X in the first place? I think it's blocked in a lot of countries. Concrete example. Yeah, I was just talking about this. When Elon Musk hosted Donald Trump on X during the election season, EU officials threatened him with penalties. This was two EU citizens discussing American politics being threatened by foreign censors. The stakes couldn't be higher, and we have a video of that.
Implementing the EU Digital Services Act, which was threatened to be turned against Americans when Elon Musk famously had that X space with Donald Trump during the election season. So my question to you is there any insights that you can provide to the American people about how the State Department is going to go about once again restoring free speech in a world where we are facing foreign threats from the European Union and Brazil and other places to Americans' ability to talk?
Yeah, so the first thing, obviously, is our number one priority is Americans. So we don't want to see an American who happens to be living in London or happens to be living in Europe post something online about American politics or any politics, and all of a sudden they're facing ramifications over there, or they're denied entry, and something happens, we're denying them into our country, or we're going to arrest them because they posted something while living overseas. So our number one interest is the impact it has on Americans.
Told you it's a long thread. Here's what's even more concerning. The foreign censorship laws in places like the EU were partially shaped by the same ecosystem partners that were funded by the State Department. It created a global censorship machine. All right, we're almost getting to the end here. I'm getting tired. Thank God I haven't tripped on something or fallen into the woods. Boy, I tell you, we're going to have to get a quick video of that is a pretty view. Oh my God. All right, hold on. The EU Digital Services Act now threatens Americans with fines for speech that would be protected under our First Amendment. They've already threatened a $1 billion fine against X for noncompliance and disinformation standards. We have another video.
Just on the EU Digital Services Act, I'd feel remiss if I didn't mention that the EU commissioning body there threatened Elon Musk, a non-EU citizen, talking to Donald Trump, a non-EU citizen,
during the campaign in October,
and threatened them specifically not to talk about the unrest, the street protests in the UK at the time. The UK is no longer a member of the EU, so the EU was threatening, and today we're hearing they're threatening $1 billion in fines against X for non-compliance with disinformation. And we've seen the head of their commission target non-EU citizens talking to non-EU citizens about non-EU territories. And so this is just one of these things, as this code becomes mandatory in July, to know that the State Department is focused on protecting free speech both within and without is I think, an important thing.
Well, just beyond Elon, if a country or a group of countries, in the case of the EU, although it considers itself sort of a country because these countries have, given over a significant amount of sovereignty in order to become a member of the EU, when you have foreign entities taking actions that go after Americans for speech, that becomes a foreign policy irritant for the United States, and more than an irritant, it becomes an impediment in some cases to cooperate when they're going not just after a high-profile person like Elon, but anybody for that matter. I mean, I think if you extend this out, you could see it, threatening commentators, threatening people that are opining about world events.
In a stark shift from previous policy, Rubio has raised the issue directly with foreign leaders, including at a recent Oval Office meeting with the UK Prime Minister. The message, attacks on free expression undermine one of our values that unite Western democracies. And when he says our values, he's not talking about Democrats. And we got another video.
And so I think that we've raised that. I mean, I can tell you we were at an Oval Office meeting with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and this issue came up. So this has been raised. It becomes part of our diplomatic situation that we raise when we interact with foreign interlocutors. I think what's troubling is we understand, that's always going to be an issue when certain countries around the world, but when you're dealing with Western European allies, and that's who you're talking to about this stuff, it really tells you how far it's gone and how big a problem it is. So that's a new thing for us to have to raise in those capitals, but we do it, and we do it everywhere. And I've personally witnessed the president and the vice president raise it with multiple foreign leaders And I think you're going to continue to see an emphasis on that in our diplomacy and what we talk about.
All right. We're going to finish it off right here. Oh, well, go ahead. We got a couple more. The State Department is now refocusing on pro-American messaging and protecting free speech globally, a complete reversal from the previous censorship approach that targeted Americans. What's the lesson here? As Rubio put it, sometimes some idea that starts out as innocuous or maybe even good intention can metastasize, become a weapon that can be turned into something else by someone else. And we have another video.
And you know, it's also a very important lesson here. If I take you back 15 years and I ask somebody, do you think we should be doing more to make sure ISIS and Al-Qaeda are not radicalizing people online? 15 years ago, we would have said, yeah, of course. Right. But look what that turned into. Right. And I'm not saying I'm, you know, obviously we don't want ISIS radicalizing everybody, but you have to understand that sometimes some idea that starts out as innocuous or maybe even good intention, whatever, can metastasize, becomes a weapon that can be turned into something else by someone else. That's a valuable lesson here. And everything we do, you have to understand that when you create something, what you created and what it turns into are not necessarily the same thing, especially when the people in charge change.
Right. A Frankensteinian monster that takes on a life of its own. So then that is to say you can commit to the American public now that there will be a transparency effort to actually...
Yeah, that's already started. Because I think as part of justifying doing all this, we had to document this, right? So now I think there's more in-depth, and we'll create a process for people at sort of point. We already know some of the higher profile ones, but there are more than a higher profile ones, right? There are a lot of other, including everyday individual American citizens who suddenly were labeled.
Okay, thanks for reading. If you enjoyed this post, follow, and you saw his name at the beginning of the post. So, when that neighbor of yours hates you and wants you to shut the hell up, just remember, free speech. So I'm gonna set this down, and we're gonna get this view on the video. Hopefully, there's enough light for you to see that. Isn't that beautiful? This is why I come out in the evening at night. Number one, it's cool. You know, it's only about 70 some degrees. If I'd been out here at noon, it was 90, 95 degrees. And then of course you get this view on the other side, looking at the sunset. Now I don't like being out here in the dark, but it don't bother me that much. Peace out and stay free. Boy, it's funny that I hit on the illegal immigrant theme for this video. Boy, check out that moon. I don't know if you can see that. Anyway, I just said on the radio that Trump has signed an executive order banning all assistance to illegal aliens of federal funds, such as Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. So, you know, just remember they were here on a year or 2 year long vacation. Well, not the children who were trafficked into brothels to be raped over and over again. And Democrats, you know, Democrats, we still got to get that video in. They're pedophiles, satanic, demonic creatures. That's who the Democrats are. And they're all for child trafficking or human trafficking. So there were a lot of people hurt. A lot of people died trying to get here. Democrats don't care. As long as they can get a vote or two out of an illegal immigrant, you know, and they can destroy the country. Let's get that moon on the video. There it is. All right. You know, as we continue along here, I had to point out one thing. You know, we're still having to pay for what the Democrats did to us. You know, if an illegal immigrant gets sick, they're going to go to the emergency room because they don't have medical care. That's going to cost us, you and me, money. Some of the illegal immigrants were children that maybe didn't get trafficked into a brothel, but they have to attend school. So we're paying to educate them in the schools right now, you know, which affects the other students, the American citizens' education, because a lot of the illegal immigrants don't speak English. So can you imagine how that drags down the ability to teach, you know, English or you know, grammar, I should say, and math and science and computers. So anyway, it's so this is going to hurt the United States throughout the Trump administration and cost the taxpayers money. The funny part for me is that veterans didn't care. They didn't care. Can't even talk about this stuff in, like I said, at a VFW or a veterans organization. Old people didn't care. Democrats didn't care. The only people that cared were mainly Republicans who were somewhat politically active, at least as far as I can tell. All right, I just wanted to add that one last observation, because even though, Trump signed that executive order to limit federal funding of, what we can, the benefits that illegal immigrants can get. So really, I do think that illegal immigrants would do themselves a favor. Just go back to where you came from. And then, of course, if you do it voluntarily, you can work your way back to the United States legally. But that's a costly and expensive process, but one that could be worth it if the United States can pull itself out from underneath what the Democrats have done to us. Because I think we got hard times ahead, for sure. Man, I almost got hit in the head by a bird. And he was making this weird sound. Maybe somebody can tell me what the hell it was. It was going burr, 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 burr. I've never heard a bird make a sound like that, especially when he almost hit me. Oh, well, that freaked me out, man. That freaked me out. All right. So I wanted to get this on the video. See that spider? Let me get the light on them. They're out here by the hundreds. And if you look, you'll see their eyes. The light reflects off their eyes. Kind of, see over here, there's one there, one there, one there. They're out here by the thousands. Look at all these spiders. See them? I don't know if you can see the reflection of the light. I don't know. It's pretty daggone scary. And sometimes they get on me, man. I tell you what, their bites, they leave a mark, man. It takes weeks for those bites to heal. Don't like spiders. So I don't know if you can see this. There are hundreds of spiders in there. You see the light reflecting off of their eyes? Hopefully I was getting it on the video. This just creeps me out, man. I never want to lay down on the ground here in Florida ever again, especially not in the forest. And the thing is, they're on the trail too. You see them right there? So I'm actually kind of hiking right. And then when I look down, some of these suckers are big. By the way, it's shocking sometimes how fast these spiders are moving. I don't know if they move around like this during the day. Of course, you can't see them during the day. And some of these suckers are huge, man. Anyway, there was a movie I just wanted to point out. I think it was called Atlas. I'll put it in the video. It was really good. It was up on Netflix. And man, I watched the whole thing. I was like, gosh, dang, it seems like the good movies don't go nowhere. Every now and then Hollywood does come out with a good movie, but I want to go home. Wasn't there a movie called It Crawls? What is that? Oh, I thought there was something in there. And I'm going to look up that movie when I get home. I'm going to watch it. It crawls, because these woods are crawling, man. They are crawling. Well, those spiders crawl all over. I forgot another Democrat theme was, Trump, the tax bill's going pretty good. It's going to cut tax on Social Security, tax on tips, and I can't remember the third tax. Tax on overtime, that's right. Anyway, the Democrats are fighting against that. So if you got a neighbor, man, they want to take your money away from you. They love taxes, don't they? I can't believe the Democrats are going to fight against lowering people's taxes. And then people vote for them. Oh my God. I can't be around a Democrat. I just can't do it.